Hey, everybody. Welcome to What Had Happened Was episode 38. 38.
Wow, we're getting
Karen
up
Ryan here
there.
with. Yeah.
Angela Overkill Hill.
Yeah, episode
Yeah.
38. We are humming along. Talking MMA, talking pop culture and stuff. But you were out celebrating just up until moments ago. We should say we're recording this now late Sunday night. Because you were out celebrating a victory. Is that right?
I feel like you can tell. No, I was
A little bit.
just a little bit. I was celebrating with my girl Jenna Bishop. She finally had her first MMA fight, and I have been training with her. She's one of those people who you train with, and you're like, man, I can't wait till this bitch gets a fight so she could beat someone else up. But
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been training with her for about a year, and she finally got her first MMA fight. She's a very accomplished grappler in the same sense as Mackenzie Dern, but
Uh-huh.
she's a flyweight, and she finally got to have her first MMA fight after everyone turned her fights down. And she beat up this woman who was, she had experience, but
Yep.
there's levels to this game. She was a
Yep.
purple belt, she's a black belt, and she's been working really hard on her striking, and she demolished her. So we went and celebrated that. And now I'm back and I'm totally sober and I'm ready to talk about UFC.
Right. So my question is, was that at LFA?
That was an LFA fight. We were in Colorado. We were in Vail, Colorado.
Right. So my boy Alan
Vail.
Joban was calling that fight.
He was there and he was looking fab as always. And yeah, it was nice to see him there. He had very good things to say about Jenna. And yeah, it was good to see a familiar face for sure.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just putting that together because I know he was working on that one.
Yeah, yeah, he
with
did a
Ron.
great job. I
Yeah.
listened to a little bit of it, and he was doing a real good job. Good job,
Cool.
Joe Biden. You're not just a pretty face. You're also a pretty mouth.
You got a pretty mouth.
You got a pretty mouth on top of that face. Yeah.
Wow. That is so crazy. Well, that sounds fun, and congratulations to her. And that's actually cool. Yeah. That's fun that you get to live vicariously through her and there with her. I mean, since you guys were cornering her and stuff. Because unfortunately for one of your other homies, Dwight, it didn't go so well this weekend over at UFC, huh?
Dude, I was so pissed. And you know what? It was like a really horrible, it was just like a really like weird situation because as we were flying out, that's when he was walking out. So I'm just like, what's happening? I'm in the air not knowing what's happening. But he fought a really close fight versus Trinaldo, who is another fighter I love. And it sucks because I watched the fight, and even though I'm biased, I was just like, man, I feel like he did enough to get round one. It was close, but maybe round one went to Trinaldo, but round two, like he fucked them up. And I was like, okay, they're 1-1 going into round three, and then round three started off with 2 fouls. Trinaldo got a point deducted, and then Dwight just got sat on the whole round. So I was like, okay, worst case scenario, it's a draw. Best case scenario, Dwight won the first 2 rounds, and then the judges scored it for Trinaldo. They gave him 30-27, which I think is bogus. Like, I don't think that is a good assessment of what the fight looked like. And I don't know, it's just one of those weird ones where it's just like, man, like what were the judges looking at that I didn't see? So
yeah, it was a split decision. Split
decision. It's a split decision. And on top of that, Sal D'Amato, a person who I am not a fan of, had the same judging that I did. So I'm conflicted in many ways.
Brain is
I'm just like, how does this person I don't agree with me? So
it's
just
tough.
one of those sticky situations.
Yeah, it was a close fight. I know that obviously you're much closer to the situation, so your heart is in it more. Just as the observer, I'm thinking, yeah, it was a close fight. It was a close fight.
it's a close fight, and you can never be too mad at the judges when
Right.
it's close. But at the same time, 30-27 always
Well, no.
looks like, oh, it's a dominant fight, and it
Right.
wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
And with the point deduction, it should have been a lot
It
closer.
should've.
But
Exactly.
you know, it wasn't. It wasn't like a close fight on paper, and it just pisses me off that it wasn't a close fight on paper, and I hate that.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me before. This happened to a group of my friends before, and I just hate to see it happen again. And yeah, you know, like the only solution to that is, hey guy, you gotta try to finish a fight. But it's like easier fucking said than
Way easier
in
said than done.
execution. So
yeah,
it's just one of those frustrating things. But you know, I had that like moment of brevity when watching Jenna, because it was a very dominant fight, and I had another you know, friend get another dominant win. So it's always nice to have those dominant wins when on the same weekend as you have those close losses that just frustrate you. But at the same time, you know, like it's just frustrating. And dude, that eye poke looks so bad. Like you were there, you were working.
We were
working.
It was pretty squeamish. We were kind of freaking out.
So bad. And you know, just the way he reacted, like, you know, Dwight's a tough dude. You know, he doesn't freak out over anything except for maybe spiders. He doesn't like spiders. But yeah, but like he's a tough guy. And the fact that he reacted the way he did, it made my skin crawl, because I knew how horrible of a feeling that was to get poked, how painful that must have been to get poked that way. And I was talking to Adam about it. He cornered Dwight, and he was saying that backstage, like they were asking him if his eyes were crossed already. You know? and he's like, no, no, what are you talking about? My eyes aren't crossed. And they're like, oh shit, okay, you know, so his eyes were crossed from the eye poke. Like it definitely hindered his performance in the third round after he started picking up momentum. So it's just a frustrating type of fight to watch a friend go through.
I hope he's okay.
He's fine now. Yeah, he's fine now. But in the moment, like, even I think he mentioned, like, just after the fight was continued, like even little shit, like a jab or, you know, a cross, just his vision just started going crazy again, you know. And he's too tough to say, hey, my vision's fucked up, maybe we should stop the fight. But like, at that point too, you're wondering, is it a DQ or do they go to the scorecards? Like, it's just one of those, like, weird situations.
That sucks. I will say though, it's hard because that kind of situation, it happens. And Trinaldo's not a bad guy. Like you said, you like him too. And he's
I love that guy.
He's been in the UFC forever. I think it was one of the 23rd UFC fight, I think. Alex Caceres was fighting for his 25th UFC fight, which is amazing. He's been in the UFC for 10 years and he's only 33, which is so cool. But for Trinaldo, he's a guy who's fought everybody. You know, this is his second fight up at welterweight. He's not a bad guy. And so it's just an unfortunate situation. And it was just it was a close fight. But you're right. I don't like when you can tell it's a really close fight and one judge says 30-27, because
two judges said 30-27. I'm just like, that's not the real story, you know. It just makes me think of my Michelle Watterson fight, where one judge gave 4 rounds to Watterson, and it's just like, the fuck were you watching? Like, were you even awake? Like, did you even show up? Like, how did you get paid for this? You know, it's one of those situations where you really wish that the judging was better and it just told a better story of what actually happened.
Well, I've always said, and I mean, because like I said, I play a lot of tennis now, and you can have a match where it's 6-0, 6-0, but you went to deuce every time. You could have had 10 deuces. Every single one of those games could have had how many X points, but at the end of the day, it just says 6-0, and you're like, but I did more than 0. Like, but
Yeah.
on paper, it looks like you sucked.
You got smashed. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Lame.
not the case. Well, yeah, the main event was pretty damn exciting. It did go 5 rounds.
Epic. Yeah.
Yeah, and it ends up being a light heavyweight fight because of these shenanigans that went on, and I kind of wanted to talk to you about that, but kind of even more than the fight itself, because the fight was pretty great, and I'm just so impressed with Marvin Vettori and his chin and everything that he was able to take, because
Yeah.
lesser men would have, because Costa was massive on fight night. He whirled in there about 220 or something like that. He was huge, and he obviously did train for this fight, because it went all 5 rounds and he was still pushing even when we all thought he was going to gas out. He still had stuff in the tank. He was throwing wheel kicks and who knows what in the 4th round and all this kind of stuff. So he still had it. And as much as I want to reprimand him for all of the weight BS, when it actually comes to the fight part, you're like, damn, that was a fight. That was a really good fight, And so it's kind of hard to separate those two things. But, I guess afterwards, Dana was saying he's going to have to be a 205er now. He's not going to be able to go, because Paulo said after talking to Megan on the show, he's like, oh, I'm going to go back down to 85. And he's kind of looking around, and we're all sort of like, yeah, bro, no.
You're like, really?
I mean, back to 81, 85. And we're like, yeah, I don't, that whole, what is it? The, Jonah Hill meme where he's like, no, and we're like, no, I think that's done.
Yeah.
So then my brain started going to who's in light heavyweight and who are like the top light heavies. And, he could do very well there very quickly. There's a lot of strikers. You got your Santoses, your Johnny Walker, guys like that. Rakic, got a lot of striker guys that maybe won't necessarily take him down and wrestle. Maybe Rakic would try to do that or whatever, like he did to Anthony. But like, Paulo could be very successful at 205 pounds. But I really just wanted to also just really applaud Marvin, because not only did he have an incredible fight and take all this stuff from Paulo that he dished out, but through the whole week of all this BS of getting the weight class changed and this and that, he just hung tight and was like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll do it. Whatever. I'm not going to, risk this fight and all that. And I think that, a lot of people kind of pick on Marvin and, make fun of him. He does go from 0 to 60 very quickly. But if he didn't earn a lot of people's respect this week, I don't know how else he could.
He's like a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think Marvin is dope. Like I really do enjoy like his craziness and his passion and all that stuff. And he has a killer chin. He's super tough. He has a game plan and he sticks to it. And like he's a hard worker. You can tell he's just a hard worker. He's a workhorse, and that's his deal. Like he's not tricky. He's not slick. He's a fucking workhorse, and he sticks to the basics and he goes for them and he's good at them. And that's his whole shtick. And there's something to be said about a fighter who doesn't give a fuck if their opponent is coming in a higher weight class. Just the fact that he knew beforehand saved the fight. Like if he had found out on the day of the weigh-in that Costa wasn't going to make weight, that could have ruined this fight. I mean, that could have like canceled the fight. But the fact that they were able to come together and just be like, hey, bro, like, I'm not going to make weight. Do you still want to fight me? And he's like, yeah, bro, let's fight. And then they figure out a compromise. And then they had to compromise again, because at first it was like 195, right? And then they were like, okay, 205. Let's fight at a higher weight class. Yeah. But the fact that he was still down to scrap after that says a lot about him. And there was one fight card. I forget if I was fighting or if I was cornering, but he was supposed to fight on that card. And his opponent, I think it was like Jamal Hill or something. Okay. His opponent pulled out because of some kind of complication during the weight cut. He was livid. Like he was like stomping through the hotel, going, I need a fight. I want to fight you. And like trying to find the person who pulled out and go like, hey, you ducked me. I want to fight you still. Like this guy is just very passionate about fighting. Yeah. So I was really happy that it worked out to the point where they could still fight, and they put on a performance. Like I watched a little bit of the Adesanya breakdown.
Yeah.
The pre-fight breakdown, and I was like, dude, he was so fucking shady. He was super shady. It was kind of funny to watch, but watching the highlights after watching that breakdown, I was very impressed, because despite all whatever shadiness you can throw at the matchup, it was a really compelling fight.
Yeah.
They both brought like very different things to the table, and Vettori just showed his resilience. He just showed that he's willing to output more, and it kind of, I hate to say it, but it reminds me of a Colby Covington. The fact that he's just able to, mix things up rather, and throw volume and just overwhelm his opponents, and just be the person who's not willing to quit first. And I think that's like a huge advantage that he's going to have going forward. But yeah, hella fight.
And that's a fair comparison too. Colby is very, very good. And the thing that Colby and Marvin have in common is the fact that they are not finishers, and they do everything but that. Right. And so that's something that Marvin is very well aware of. And he was talking about that with us on the show, that he knows that the more he can just fine tune his technique, excuse me, that those finishes will come. But he knows it, and they set a new record in the light heavyweight division for significant strikes landed, right? So Marvin landed 190, and I think Paulo landed 163, something insane like that. So now they have the 1 and 2 slots of significant strikes landed, and all of that. And so Marvin knows, obviously he would have loved the finish. He would have loved to knock him out.
Yeah.
He came close, with the submissions and stuff. So he wants that finish. He knows it, and he knows that, if he can just tweak a few more things and fine tune these things, that those will come. So I would say that the one knock I guess people would still have against Marvin is that he's not finishing these fights, that his fights do go to decision. But he's an incredibly hard worker, and he obviously worked on his boxing. He always was good at that, but he obviously worked on it even more to fight Paulo. He has the takedown record for the most in a middleweight fight when he fought Kevin Holland. So Marvin is really, really good. And his work ethic is, I don't know, I don't want to say it's better than other people's, but very clearly hard work beats talent when, talent doesn't work hard or whatever. Right. I mean, because Paulo is obviously incredibly talented. And that's always been the question about him, is how hard does he work? And if fights came easy to him, and for a long time, he didn't even make it to the second round. And then a long time, he never even made it to whatever. So like, this is the longest fight of his career, and so these are still lessons for him. And as much as like I said, want to reprimand him or for whatever, for this stuff with the weight, he's still very young in his career. This is only his second loss or whatever. There's a lot for him to learn and a lot to come back from. And I was actually very impressed with a lot of things he was doing in the fight. But that is some major league BS with the weight shenanigans. Because then we were so Kiesa and I were working, and we were starting to figure out, we were like, bruh, I was like, do you think he was trying to take it to try to see what it feels like to fight at 205 without actually risking fighting a 205er?
Yeah.
And because he can't just call out Rockets or whatever, because obviously Paulo was number 2 middleweight. So he'd have to call out somebody high up, right? So maybe he's like, shoot, I might want to be a light heavyweight, but I don't really want to try out one of those dudes right now. So let me just finagle this fight into a light heavyweight fight to see if I can even if I can fight like this.
Right.
And then he was like acting surprised when Dana said he couldn't go back to middleweight, but
you knew. Come on, son. You knew. He had a little too much wine and cheese, like he knew what was gonna happen after pulling that stunt. And just the fact that they even went behind UFC brass and went on an interview and just said, hey, let's fight at 205. Like that's also, I guess, I don't know if it's unprofessional, but it's definitely like it's not gonna be something that the company is okay with, like they want to know first. They don't want you to to break news before they know about it, so it's just a bad look. It's a really bad look, and it's all Costa's fault because he couldn't make the weight, and Vettori just wanted the fight so bad that he didn't care, and they agreed to fighting at a higher weight class. And you really have to think, because Costa just keeps coming up with excuses like, oh, I can't make weight. Oh, I had all this wine before my fight. Like, and you almost wonder what's the next excuse gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of immaturity in the way that he's approaching fights at this moment. And like you said, he's young in his career. Maybe you see that a lot with talented fighters, people who are born on third base. They don't understand the sacrifice that it takes, and they don't understand the discipline that it takes to be the best, because they are so much better than most of their competition already. So yeah, it's like a lesson that hasn't been learned yet, but he's already getting the negative impacts from it. Like, he's already getting the criticism. He's getting the company not really being behind him as much because of it. So yeah, it's unfortunate, because he does have a lot of potential. He is young in his career. He's done so well doing what he's doing, but now he's hitting little road bumps and he's making excuses for himself. And it's kind of like a scary sign, because you wonder if this is going to snowball into a pattern where he's just like never improving. So it is a little worrying, but we'll see how it does at 205.
Well, and the interesting thing is, when I was over on Fight Island last time after his fight with Israel, and I was talking to his coach, Eric Albarracin, and after the fight, and I think we were talking about this a little bit on the last show, after the fight, when they lost to Israel, he admitted that there were things in their camp that weren't going well and that they needed to fix, but they didn't fix them because he kept winning. So they didn't address him. And so Eric was actually, as much as they were disappointed by what happened to fight with Israel, he was, I can quote unquote say, excited about the idea of at least starting to make some of the changes that they knew they needed to make, but that they didn't make prior, because they just kept winning. And so they just kept doing what they were doing. So hopefully, and it's interesting, because I saw, like, this week, I saw that Darren Till is now over at the PI, right? So Darren has gone on a little bit of a skid, right? He's obviously an incredibly talented fighter. Things have not been going his way. And maybe I don't know, but maybe Darren's the type of guy that only likes to train the stuff he likes to train. And very clearly we have found a hole in his game and he's getting beaten, right? And so maybe now he's over here to address that. I'm not really sure. My point is just that maybe Paulo needs to get out of where he is, get uncomfortable, and grow, because he's awesome, but he's not going to keep getting all these chances. And, he's got to go back to winning. I mean, he blasted on the scene with all these knockouts and all this stuff. And he, I think, has been given a chance to grow. But like, after this one, and I know it's easy, as one of those people are going to be, oh, I really thought I won. And there was a point deduction. I personally don't remember him getting warned. And so I don't know if he had been warned and if the point was taken right away or not. That I do think the point deductions are tough. That's a tough thing. But in general, I just was curious how you felt as a fighter, because it was very disrespectful to just say F you to the whole rules about the weights. And it's like, it's a big F you to all of you, I felt like.
Yeah, I hate the idea of, like, I've been lucky enough where I've never had an opponent miss weight.
Yeah.
And I have to
really never.
And I've never had an opponent miss weight.
That's very rare.
Dude, it's so rare, especially as a woman. Yeah. I'm on the same page. I'm like, I'm lucky. But at the same time, I'm also super, like, what do you call it? Unsympathetic? Insympathetic?
Yeah. Unsympathetic. Yeah.
Unsympathetic. I'm not sympathetic.
She don't give any F's.
I don't give a fuck. If you're on your period, if you're, like, I don't know, nursing or whatever. I think it's really rude to miss weight. I really do, because it's so hard to make weight that if you make weight and your opponent doesn't make weight, that's putting you at a disadvantage. You're at a disadvantage for doing your job. And so that's why I fucking hate it. And I'm so mad whenever it happens to someone. And I've had teammates where I've encouraged them to still take the fight when their opponent missed weight, and I fucking regret it because it always ends up a bad situation where you wonder like, oh, maybe this fight would have gone a different way if it was fair. And if you miss weight, it's not fair. You don't work as hard to make the weight. Making weight sucks. Even for me, a person, an athlete that doesn't cut that much, it still sucks. And you still deplete yourself, and then you bring the weight back on. And if someone isn't depleting themselves to the same size as you, then they're definitely at an advantage. Like, there's no doubt about it. So I hate the idea of a fighter fighting someone who missed weight. I think it's really unfair. And I think I think as soon as the fight happens, if you lose, no one remembers that you lost to a person that missed weight. And I don't think I really don't think it's worth the purse deduction. I don't think it's worth getting that 20% because you have this loss on your record that you're never going to be able to rectify. And there's no asterisk by it. Like, it's just a loss. So I hate that. I honestly hate that. And I do think that it's better to decide on fighting heavier a week before or a few days before than cutting the weight, showing up, making weight, posing on the scale, and then your opponent shows up like 7 pounds, a whole darn heavier than you. They show up like 7, 8 pounds heavier than you, and they're like, I tried. I definitely think it's better to discuss it and just be like, hey, can we salvage this fight? Yes, no. You say yes or no, and then you move on with your life. So I'm not super mad at Costa because they were upfront about it, and they were like, hey, I'm not going to make weight. No point in you suffering through a weight cut too. Like, let's just fight at this weight, I do think that's better, but it's still not good. It's still not good. But it's definitely better than Vettori making 185 and Costa showing up at 205, and trying to make that fight still happen.
For sure. Well, at work, I was with Mike Chiesa, and he was pretty hot about it. He did not like, he was pretty PO to Costa all week and stuff. It just didn't like the idea and thinks it's disrespectful. And he said, hey, and I fully agree, and you and I have talked about this before, you signed a contract, you knew what day you had to weigh a certain amount, and if Aunt Flo was going to be coming in town that week, plan ahead 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you knew that day was coming. So I actually also have zero sympathy. I actually don't give up either. You said you were going to be at this weight and you didn't do it. Like, you didn't do your job. So I have actually no sympathy for it either. But that doesn't mean I can't understand real life happens, and like, stuff happens, and like, sometimes your body goes into whack, or a certain circumstance comes up, or a thing happens, or whatever, and that led to you not making weight. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be like, oh, it's okay, baby girl. It's like, no, you effed up major.
Yeah. And just to add, like, to your point, the pressure as a main event to keep the card alive is so high. So you basically go in there knowing like, hey, I fucked up, but you're still going to take the fight. Like, I know you're going to take the fight because you're the guy that goes cussing out people when your fighter gets pulled from the card. Like, I know you're going to take the fight. That pressure to take the fight is so high. Like, there's no one. There are very few fighters who will say no to a fight because because their opponent missed weight if they're the main event. Like, I just think that's a really you have to talk about that too. Like, it's almost like he didn't have a choice. He was gonna say yes.
He didn't.
Regardless.
Marvin didn't have a choice.
He was gonna say yes. So that's probably why Chiesa was so peeved about it, because he knew he had no choice. He was gonna say yes no matter what. So at least he had a few days notice. At least he knew he could make 205 and not have to suffer. But still, like, you don't want that. Like when I got offered to fight Rebus 2 days later or 2 weeks later, after she got COVID. No, after she got COVID. She was actually sick. But after she got COVID, they were like, oh, well, would you be willing to fight her at 125? And I'm like, fuck no. That bitch is huge. Like, no, fuck no. Like, no. I used to fight at 110. Like, I'm not going to fight someone at 125, especially if she's a judoka. Like, if anything, an extra 10 pounds is going to give her way more hip thrust.
Forget about it.
Toss my ass on my fucking head. Like, no, fuck that.
No.
And you know, it's not ideal. It's never ideal to fight at a higher weight class when you're fighting someone who struggles to make the weight that you make. Like, if anything, it's a disadvantage to them because they keep trying to make this weight that they can't make. So fuck that. Like, no. So I do feel bad for Vettori because he did have to take this fight against someone who struggles to make weight, and he makes it pretty comfortably. He's made it multiple times. He's never complained. Like, you know, he's a more natural middleweight than Costa is.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. And Marvin even said, he's like, yeah, no, that's a big ass dude that I was fighting, you know, and like, because he, you know, we were joking about it because, you know, down at King's, he obviously trained with Fabricio Verdum, the heavyweight champ, and Fabricio's giant. And, you know, he would put it on people. Friday sparring at King's is famous. So it's not that Marvin hasn't mixed it up with big dudes, but in a 5-round fight and, you know, and all this stuff. And it's like they were really going for it, obviously. But he admitted, he's like, he's huge. And we were even joking about it in the set. We were like, yeah, like you said, thick with 2 C's. We were like, God damn, like look at, to the point where I almost started taking pictures of Costa to send to some of my guy friends. Do you know what I mean? Because every now and then I send my friends, a few of my friends, some pictures, and I'm like, just in case you happen to be around a TV on Saturday, because like I'll show them some people, and then they'll write me back, and they'll be like, "Well, thank you very much for the heads up." And honestly, if I'm giving a little bit of a couple things away, but I don't even know if I should say this.
Do it, say it.
Well, every now and then, you know, when you're watching the fights, and let's say like your phone rings or whatever, and like you hit pause or whatever, and like sometimes people are in some very compromising positions. Let's say you're grappling and like, you know.
Oh, yes.
And so I have sent my friends some screen grabs because depending on where like the angle is and the thing, and they'll write me, they're like, oh my God, they're like, that's so hot.
Yes.
I have
sending them that Strawweight 69.
Well, no, and I'm sending them to my gay friends. I'm sending the guy stuff.
Yeah, sending them the middleweight. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a hot.
I know. But when people are checking the oil and all, but it's so funny because I don't like. It's not a thing, but like every now and then, I've just landed on something. I'm like, all right, that's kind of hot. Like, and I'm like, and I know my friends would totally appreciate this. And so I'll just surprise them with this text. And then they're always like, thank you very much.
Spank bank.
Yeah, totally. So I almost took some pictures of Paulo for them because he was extra thick and juicy, but I didn't. But
did you take photos when he fought Adesanya after the KO?
Oh, did I take pictures of him? I mean, I have pictures of him from Bud Island when we were there. I picked.
Did you send a GIF to your friends?
Oh no! Oh, that no, I didn't. I did not. No, I didn't. I shouldn't. I didn't. But yeah, like I said, they like the ones that are the surprise ones. But anyway, I don't know how we got on that subject.
That was all you.
You're right. Marvin was 100% pressured into that fight.
Yes.
And hopefully, you know, so with Adesanya, speaking of Adesanya, it would be the third fight for Marvin. They've gone 8 rounds. The first time they fought to a split decision, I was at that fight. And the interesting thing was, I remember we were backstage and Marvin and Rafael Cordero and I were talking, And Hoffa's like, what do you think? Who do you think won that fight? And I was like, well, I gotta be honest. I'm like, I think Israel did win, but Marvin had scored a 3rd round takedown. I was like, if you could have like done that in round 2 or like done that a couple times more, then that maybe would have turned the tide. But really, it was a very close fight. But I was like, yeah, I think your 3rd round performance, if you could have just done that a little bit sooner, would have helped you. And then in the second fight, Marvin still feels really good about. He did do a lot of good things tonight. Unite, Mini Me's going to bed. And
Oh, good
so
night.
and so but so he's got a lot of time with Israel, right? So he's got 8 rounds with him. And maybe he'll be next because Paulo was number 2, Marvin was number 5. It's like at this point, Israel's got these rematches and things. I don't know, but I mean, Marvin, he put himself real high up again on the list, I think.
I think so, but unfortunately, when you fought the champ twice already, you still have to make a point, and you almost have to wait for someone interesting to come along and then fuck them up, like Brunson style, you have to wait for someone who's beating people who looks impressive, and then you're like, okay, let's see how he does against Vettori. And then Vettori just has to demolish him. And
but he beat Jack Hermanson and he beat Kevin Holland.
He did, but like, how close were these guys to a title shot? Like, how close was Kevin Holland?
Hermanson was close, but then though he beat those 2 before the title shot, and then he lost the title fight. So he's got to do it again.
He's got to do it again. Like, in order to get another title shot, like it's almost like you reset the clock.
Yeah.
You get the title shot, you don't win, you reset the clock, you're still at number 2, and you don't move unless you lose. But in order to get that title shot again, you're going to have to win every fight. So they're still going to give him matchups, but like, they're not going to give him matchups with people that they want to fight the champ if it looks like he's going to demolish them because of the style mashup,
right?
Because styles make fights. So it's one of those weird ones where maybe they'll let Vettori fight a high level wrestler, maybe they'll let Vettori fight someone who is very methodical in their approach in the way he is, but they're not going to make him fight someone who is exciting, someone who is interesting, someone who maybe has a better personality than their skills. You know what I mean? Because those are the fights that they can sell. Those are the fights that they can put on pay-per-view and get a lot of people to buy in. And then, Adesanya will probably smash him, and then he's going to be looking for another opponent soon. So, like, Vettori's probably going to get passed up at least 1 or 2 times before he gets that next matchup, but it's still definitely possible. Like, it's not like people won't buy in to a trilogy. Right. It's just he has to make a case for himself. So as long as he gets those good matchups, as long as he gets people, and he's able to perform well against them, and I think he can, just because he's been doing so well. Aside from Adesanya, like, Adesanya is the only person he can't conquer, and is as long as he keeps performing the way he is, he can get that 3rd title shot. It's just, or not 3rd title shot, but 3rd matchup.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of him being successful and staying active. And he can't get discouraged by the fact that other people are going to pass him by. Because that's definitely going to happen, because no one's going to be excited about him fighting Adesanya for a 3rd time unless he's just killing people. So this was a good start to him getting that 3rd matchup, but he's going to have to get a lot more heads on his mantle before he's going to be able to, get that next shot.
Yeah, and arguably, I mean, taking out the number 2 guy. Yeah, he took out one of the most dangerous guys already now, which is great for him. And the first time they fought, like you said, with Israel, it was not a title fight. Izzy wasn't the champ, so that was just a 3-round fight. But yeah, you're right. It's going to be, it would be tough to say, he's next for another title shot. Yeah, it will be tough. And the cool thing for Marvin, though, now he actually can afford to just sort of sit and wait a little bit because he's been putting in work, And if he just kicked back a little bit, nobody's gonna be mad at him. And maybe dumb luck, maybe somebody would knock off Israel. You never know. And then it's a different fight, right?
There
And
you
so,
go.
but the problem is like that's Whitaker. Like, you know what I mean? It's like at that point you're talking about fighting Robert Whitaker. And so then you're like, well, shoot, Whitaker and Vettori already fought. So but yeah, it's and we were joking about this on the show. I was like, the thing is like everybody's like, I'm doing this and I'm fine tuning and I'm doing this. And meanwhile, Adesanya is sitting back and still getting better too. And I was just like, think about that. He, like he's already amazing.
Yeah.
And Israel's just leveling up too alongside. So it's kind of funny because I feel like it's just one of those things where in your head, when people picture, oh, I need a title, I'm going to get a title shot. And you sort of picture the champ as the champ was in their last fight or something, right? Like the champ was almost like a person that seems like that they've reached a finite position in time that they don't keep improving to. And you're sort of like, yeah, guess what? That guy kept getting better too.
Yeah. Adesanya is definitely one of those champs that, they have all the resources to get better and they use them. And that's the scary part. He's using every resource he has to keep improving, to keep being trickier and trickier. And he's already slick, So it's how do you prepare for someone who's so crafty, who's set so many traps in their game, and they're just gaining more and more traps as they as they go on with their career. He has such an extensive kickboxing career. He is getting better in his grappling day after day. I don't know. It's a hard one to prepare for, but the more he fights, the more he's going to expose parts of himself where you can't take advantage of, the way he fights. You can take advantage of his tells, take advantage of his tendencies and that kind of thing. But, until he continues to fight, you're not going to see those things to take advantage of. There's nothing to prepare for. You're just gonna have to guess, So it's a really hard one to deal with. And whenever you have a dominant champion like that, that's gonna be the outcome. You're gonna have this you're gonna have this champion that's always improving, who's dominant, that's always showing new looks, and maybe somebody will get lucky and they'll catch him, or maybe someone will figure him out and just be better at certain things that they're not good at and be able to take advantage of that, or maybe they're just going to be dominant until they retire. You never know how this is going to go. And I think with Khabib retiring on top, it set a new precedent for that, where before I think you assumed that eventually that champion would get dethroned, but now you're like, maybe the champion will retire a champion. Who knows?
I think Valentina could totally retire unbeaten.
Fuck yeah, she could.
Because
she's a monster.
That's what I'm saying. And right when people thought they figured her out, she was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna out grapple Jennifer Maia."
Yeah, okay. I'm a grappler now. I'm a wrestler now. Even I have judo, I have wrestling, I have all the shit that you can't do, and I'm just gonna put you on your side. I'm not even gonna get in your guard. I'm gonna go to side, and I'm just gonna beat on you, and I'm gonna submit you. Fuck you. That's what she said.
2 crucifix finishes in the UFC just because I can.
What's wrong with her? Maniac. Who does that?
She's insane.
Who does that? Does she have any free time? No, she's just all her time is focused on destroying women, and she's so good at it.
I know. I want her to at some point she's gonna have to slow down for 9.5 months, 10 months, just to crank out a little mini Valentina and then keep moving along, because we need another generation of those. She cannot be the only one. You know what I mean? We need to make more of those.
I feel like she could just adopt that little girl that punches the trees. You know what I'm talking about? Totally. She's like, yeah, the little, she looks like her. Yeah, a little blonde girl. Yeah. Just adopt that girl. She'll be fine.
She does. Well, it was an interesting card. We had 14 fights, and a lot of the people on it were sort of up and comers, and there were some people who had like winner go homes, and that kind of thing. But I actually kind of wanted to look ahead and get your take on Glover Teixeira versus Jan Blachowicz, because the Glover story to me is just so awesome. Like the whole story of perseverance, and the fact that he's now like in his 40s, but he's fighting for the title and could very well win it. Like like Glover is incredibly durable, and a lot of time, we sort of joke at work sometimes. I don't want to give it away, but sometimes when you call somebody durable, it is a compliment, but sometimes it's like, because what else? Like sometimes some people just are durable, but obviously Glover is much more than durable. But his durability, I think, is a very, very big factor in like his potential to win.
Yeah, well, it lowers your guard. He's durable to the point where you're just trying to get him out of there. And he's like, and then he snatches you up and he grabs something. He grabs a leg or an arm or a neck, and he just like, he ends the fight that way. And it's really impressive. I don't know. I'm super inspired by it. Just the fact that he uses his expertise, he uses his veteranness and his wherewithal to understand when to be passive and when to be aggressive. And I think that's something that you can only get just from being in the game for so long. A lot of people rely on athleticism. They rely on explosiveness. They rely on, just being bigger and stronger. And Glover is the opposite of that. He relies on just fucking smarts, street smarts. Fucking, he knows how to fight, he knows when to do what and when, and it's really impressive, and it's something that you can't teach, and that's what makes him so dangerous. The fact that he's crafty, he knows when to strike and when to sit back and when to wait and when to tire out his opponent. And it's just it's such a cool way to go out, if he does get the title, and if he does like reign for a while. And in his 40s, like who knows how long he's going to be fighting. Like that's also the fun part about it, because he's already in his 40s, but he's still killing like prospects. He's killing people.
Totally.
He's killing everyone. He's killing the top of the game, top 5. So it's like, how long is he going to do this? Like,
dude, he messed up Anthony. Like he messed him up.
How long are you gonna ruin people's dreams? Like, come on,
his
dude.
Teeth out. He knocked his teeth out of his face.
Yeah, and then apologize. Sorry, I'm knocking out your teeth. And it's like, it's okay, bro. Like, who does that?
And then the thing about it too is that Glover's the sweetest guy. Like when you talk to him and when you see him, I always say this, like he's got the best smile in the UFC. Like he just beams, and he is the nicest guy. And you see him, he just went like he's freaking like Santa Claus. Like he's just so freaking lovable.
Teddy
and then
bear.
He wrecks people, wrecks people. And I always joke too about like way back when he was fighting Ryan Bader. And I always say this with Glover, because like you have to always be aware, because like you said, he just takes it dead, because like remember Bader had like Glover against the cage, and Bader's like, I'm winning, and then he's like, I'm knocked out, you know what I mean? Like, he just was slapped, like he's like bam bam bam, like it just it's like it's so poor Ryan's had a rough go of it. He's a good dude too. I'm not trying to give Ryan a hard time. He's a real good dude too. But I'm just saying, like, Glover is just, look at that service. Thank you, Adam. Goodness. Adam, I could use a refill. Adam?
Karyn wants one too. He's gone.
But the other thing about it was I was there in Fight Island when Jan was fighting Dominic Reyes for the title, and that whole week I was like, I really think Jan's gonna win, and I just had that feeling about him. And the thing about it is that Jan and Glover are two very much the same kind of guy, right? Like there's very much, you can tell that meat and potatoes, hard worker, just a real good dude. And one of my favorite things is with Jan, and I can't remember if you were at the pool too, when he came to, I'm trying to get the timing, but because some of the Fight Island stuff is a little hazy.
There are a lot of these.
It's a little hazy. But it was so fun because we were at the pool at the W, and it was after he won, and he came with his team and stuff, and we're in the pool, and we're all like, "What's up, champ? Like, here comes the champ. Look at you, champ." And he was just like, and he had that look of like, "Oh my God, I'm the champ." You know what I mean? And he was like, like, "You guys are talking like I'm the champ, right?" And just beaming, and comes in and sits in the pool, and we're like, shots, 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 shots. But like, and he was, it was like, and he was about to have his baby, and like, it was just, he's such a good dude. And so it's kind of like sucks to me that one of these guys has to lose.
I know.
It really does suck to me, but I love the story of Glover getting in the UFC late in life and just like doing what he's doing. And it would be a real like Rocky type thing if Glover pulled it off.
It would. It so would. I mean, the only upside to Glover winning. Wait, how old is Jan?
I want to say maybe 30, mid-30s, maybe, probably. I can look.
So the only
he would have time to win it back.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah,
like that's the only upside to Glover winning.
Yeah.
I mean, not the only upside, but one of the only way that would be the better situation than Jan winning is the fact that Jan can win it back maybe in a year or two after Glover is just like, you know what, I'm done. I'll just fight one more.
Well, Jan's 38.
Okay, Jan's 38.
He still has time. 40. Glover, he still has time then too.
Yeah. So that's young. That's pretty young.
For the the heavyweights and the bigger guys, they can fight a little later. Like the average heavyweight on average is the oldest age, and so light heavyweight, it would make sense that they could be the second oldest. You know what I mean, on average, because you figure like a lot of their fights end with fewer punches. You know what I mean, so a lot of those guys end up sticking around more because they don't have to go through as many wars.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like one and done.
Yeah. Like, oh, that guy beat the shit out of me with that sledgehammer that came. Okay, boom, thanks.
It's done. Yeah.
So, yeah.
But that's going to be a tough one. But the good thing about that is that there's no, I don't know, there's no sour taste in your mouth whenever whoever is the best guy of the night wins. You're just like, I'm happy the best guy won.
For sure.
And it's not one of those situations where you're just like, that guy sucks. I hate him. I'm mad that he's the champion. You know what I mean? Like, it's just two guys that you love. They're fighting. And whoever wins, you're just like, man, I'm happy for them. And whoever loses, you're like, man, I wish them the best. And nobody's going to be mad at them for losing because they went out on the shield. So,
yeah. And I think it's actually going to be a good fight too. Like, I think the two of them together are going to really throw down. So looking forward to that. I will say too that I was showing a friend a picture of Corey Sandhagen today because I go, hey, this dude's probably going to be champ, and he looks like an ultimate Frisbee guy, but he's probably going to be champ.
Yeah.
And, like that one to me, Jan is great, but I believe in Corey's, like, I don't know. Because Jan is really damn good too. Mm-hmm. But after seeing when Sandhagen's in the zone, like, you just can't F with that guy.
Yeah, he just has so many different things to throw. He is, and when he's on the ground, it's the same deal. So he's not like just a really dynamic striker. He's a dynamic everythinger. And that's the coolest thing about him. And his pace is just relentless too. So the one thing I'll say is that he sits back a lot. He waits a lot, and he tries to make calculations. But this is the type of guy that is a 5-round fighter. You know what I mean? Like, when you have 3 rounds, it's easy to fuck up, not get the knockout, not get the finish, and, just wait a little too long to figure out when you want to strike. But when you are fighting 5-round fights nonstop, then you really get to show how much diversity you have. You get to show how good your fight IQ is. And I'm really excited about that fight for sure, because Piotr Yan, he has an answer for everything, you know? Like, he is just so tight and so composed.
Tank.
Yeah, he's just a little tank. He's like
Tank.
He's
he's great. He's great.
I like to describe him as a fuck. I keep forgetting the name of it, but there's this enemy that you have to fight in Final Fantasy. I think it's called Doonesbury, and he has a little knife and a hood on, and he just like he comes forward, and you're like, oh shit, here he comes, and then he comes forward a little more, and then you're like, fuck, like he's not dead yet, and he comes forward a little more, and then he stabs you and you're dead. And that's what Piotr Yan is to me. Like he's just like this guy that just comes forward, and he's like real tight, and his defense is really tight, and like once he gets in his range, once he understands his range, then it's a done deal. So that's a really exciting fight for me. I love the lower weight classes too.
Yes,
and I'm really excited about them keeping the what do you call it, the
momentum?
Division. Yeah, keeping the division in motion. There's no stalemating there with poor Aljamain, his surgeries and his suspensions and stuff. So I love the fact that they're keeping it in motion, and then we're gonna see who's gonna give Aljamain his next test. So yeah, I'm excited about that for sure.
Me too. Well, we need to get out of here, but I want to say, we had Dan Hooker on Tuesday Night Festivities a couple weeks ago. He is fighting Islam Makhachev on UFC 267, so that is going to be an excellent fight. So we had a really good time with Dan Hooker. So you should definitely check that out before this weekend's fights over at 267.
Did you have to pay?
No. And so check that out. And this week we are going to have Raging Al Iaquinta on with us, and Al is fighting on that New York card. And I love Raging Al.
I love Al.
I know. I'm so excited to see that kid. I love that kid.
Tell him I need a new house.
I will. Yeah. So that's on Tuesday. So that's on my IG live at 8:00 on the West Coast. But so it's on the KB Heat IG live. That's where you can find me over on Instagram, on Twitter, and YouTube. I'm Karyn Bryant, Karyn. Bryant as in Kobe, no relation, but may he rest in peace. Angie, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Angie Overkill on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find me at Overkill Hill on TikTok.
Nice. And then also be safe out there, people going to Halloween parties and things, right? Because some people party like all week long, right? So be safe.
Yeah, be safe. Make sure you wear your pasties. Also check your candies. They might be laced with razor blades or asbestos or COVID or whatever the fuck. Be safe, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you on the next one. We are also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio.